very excited to be here. I honestly, you always say that, right? When you come to a place, but think about it, right? For a year and a half, we were locked at our homes. Israel wasn't Florida. Lockdown after lockdown after lockdown, three lockdowns, including Passover, including Shavuot, including the high holidays. You, yourself, and your family and your kids. It's not bad. The opposite, it's quite interesting and it's quite good. But as Pastor said, after a year and a half of being together 24/7, it was pretty hard for my kids that I'm living. And I never had this trouble before. Why? Because when Abba lives, he lives. When he comes back, he has a. What do you have in your suitcase? I don't care about you. Open it. And there's a point there. But this time, it was hard for them. And I told the pastor that that's what I told him. I told him, my loved ones, I love you. I miss you already. But after a year and a half, it's time to visit my relatives and friends over there. You shout is family. I feel family. I feel welcome. And I feel when I'm coming here, I literally come to family and friends that care for us. And it's been always like that, but I want to tell you, it's been like that also during COVID. And I'll tell you the most important thing, the amazing fact that during COVID, right, wherever situation was hard and all around the world, people still thought about our friends in Israel. And CFOIC continued the connection with people. People supported us, sent us letters, mails, money donations. People were in their homes trying to survive this thing, but still thinking in their head, what about our friends and family in Israel? That's a great thing. So I want to thank you all for having me. Pastor Nick, thank you so much for having me. We spoke during COVID, and I told you the first phone call I'm going to do when I know I have a trip is going to be to you, and I did it. Okay, so today some exciting things. Hopefully, I'm going to talk about three things, and I'm going to show you two clips. One, you might see it already. Second, you could not see it because it's a world premiere of a video that nobody saw before. Okay? And that's related to visiting Judea and Samaria. It's something which is one of the topics that I'm going to talk about today. What's the estimation of when you guys are going to be able to come back and visit? And we talked about it, as you said, a lot today. That needs to happen sooner rather than later. So, three topics for today. One, historical story about something that happened in Israel a couple of months ago. Second is the story of where the COVID is going to take us, or how do people are going to come visit in Israel sooner. And the third is just maybe an update about what happens in Israel, especially on the politics, which doesn't end. The crew there with the videos, please, if you would play video number 1. Thank you.
After centuries of exile and dispersion, the people of Israel have returned to the biblical heartland, our ancestral homeland, just as God promised.
Even if your outcasts are at the ends of the world, From there the Lord your God will gather you. He will bring you to the land that your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it.
We have settled this land in fulfillment of prophecy, but we are also building a good and kind society where we reach out to our neighbors, care for them, and comfort them.
My wife and I were both Holocaust survivors, and we were married for 69 years. She passed away 3 years ago. I live alone.
Losing a spouse is an earth-shattering experience for our seniors. Loneliness, depression, this is where we must step in. At the Seniors Club, they connect to people. They smile, they laugh, they come alive.
A family in financial crisis is a family that cannot function. We help them find jobs and work with them to become better parents. But first, we have to make sure they have food.
Okay, guys, we have to pack 600 food packages for tonight, so the family will have food for the holidays.
And that's where CFOIC Heartland has made all the difference.
We face so many levels of need. Teenagers at risk, children growing up in dysfunctional families, children with learning disabilities and ADD, and handicapped children. Early intervention is critical, but we're far from the urban centers where resources are plentiful. In Judea and Samaria, the community and the professionals work together, providing children with the care and the love they need. We enable these youngsters to become productive adults, contributing to Israel.
I love it here.
CFOIC has played a vital role in turning a dream of redemption into a reality.
We are surrounded by hostile Arabs who attack us at every opportunity. The Israeli army has our backs, but they can't be everywhere at once. Volunteer rapid responders are filling in the gap, protecting the people of Judea and Samaria.
What we need is cameras, drones, and communication devices.
I have been attacked by terrorists. I've lost friends. Terrorists murdered 2 boys who were hiking in the valley below. But thanks to surveillance cameras donated by CFOIC, we will be able to stop the terror before it attacks us. Our Christian friends are literally saving lives.
The restoration of our people and our land has brought ongoing challenges and risks. God has blessed our efforts, and so have you, our Christian friends. We are struggling to settle biblical Israel, to put down roots in our ancestral homeland. But you can partner with us as we nurture our children, embrace our elderly, and protect our families. Join us today and experience the fulfillment of prophecy. Support CFOIC Heartland and take part in building Judea and Samaria.
Yes, yes. So that was just a general reminder of CFOIC, but you all saw things similar to that. I've been here in the past. You know our work, and all of you are connected to our information, but that's CFOIC to start with. It's important to note that in those crucial times when people needed the help, a lot of the help came from Christian friends around the world that supported the people of Judea and Samaria. So I wanted to start the conversation today by showing you something quite awful that happened a couple of months ago. If you can show the PDF, please, in the background. And the story is as follows. That's the last page. All the way. Correct. Okay, we'll start here. This person Adam Zertal, has a very interesting story. The story starts somewhere in 67. After the 6 Days War, we know that we are able to repossess the biblical heartland. And the first thing, or the second thing people think of when they re-enter the biblical heartland is, let's go and see all the places that we read on the books. There's a book, right? Famous bestseller, was translated to the most languages. Not Harry Potter, the Bible. And this book has so many stories in the area called Judea and Samaria. Let's see those places. I want to see with my eyes. We were only dreaming on them. Let's go see Shiloh. Let's go and see the tomb where Joseph is buried. Let's go and see the pit where in Dothan, where Joseph was thrown. Let's go and see where the dream happened in Bethel. Not even talking about Jerusalem. And there was one place that everybody was searching for. Actually, they were searching for it for almost 200 years. And I'm talking about the altar of Joshua. Just as a reminder, when the people of Israel entered the land, according to what starts in very beginning, there's a promise that when you enter the land, you're going to have this tremendous event of the two mountains, Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, mountain of blessing and curse. Priests are going to stand on one side and the others are going to be on the other side. And you're going to read some scriptures, and that's going to be the revelation of a covenant to the land, to the God, to the people. And in that process, there's going to be an altar. What if we're going to be able to find this altar? How amazing it will be. The reason I want to start with showing you this person, because it's a very interesting story. This guy in 67 is a person who just finished, you told me you read the book, finished a couple of years of service in the army. Not an archaeologist, not a scientist, not a rabbi, not anything. He's interested in the land, but just as a hobby, amateur. And he understands very quickly that no matter what's going to happen now, things are going to be unstable. We need to do something to try to do and do it fast. No time for digging. Let's walk. Now look at the situation. If you can slide to the next one, please. Right. So that's in Hebrew, but you can figure it out. You see on the right side, there is a darker area in the middle. It says Shechem. Okay? Mount Ebal is all of the area which is above it. Therefore, Mount Gerizim should be where? It's not here, but it's down in that area. And people, the archaeological sites that were digging through the years, I'm talking about people that came from America, from France, from England, years, 200 years of searching. Where would you look for this altar? If we know Mount Ebal is here, Mount Gerizim is here, Shechem is here in the center, where should we look for it? In the side that faces the other mountain. Makes sense. And they were digging and they were digging, but they never found it. So Adam Zartal thinks about it and says, wait, just a second. We know in the book of Joshua, when it describes where we're coming from, it says they're coming from Nachal Tirza, which is from the northern side. If that is the case, maybe we should search the altar not in the area which is on the south, facing Mount Gerizim. Maybe it could come from the northern side. So he begins to search, and if you can see, the mountain is like it's the north part of the mountain. And in the beginning, this guy who doesn't have any biblical study, observation at all, comes from a very secular family from a kibbutz, finds ruining of something that looks like a house for him. You can see the way the structure is, the way it looks right now, or it appears to be, but what he found was only a couple of stones. He found like almost 2 rooms, 2 bricks walls, and an area which like has a slide, right? Like a shipua, a place where the people are going to, the Kohanim, the priests are going to climb the altar. But he didn't know what's an altar. This guy has no knowledge in the way an altar looks. He begins to dig, and he's sure he found a very interesting house. Ancient house in Shechem. He doesn't know exactly where it is, but then he searches and he sees something very interesting. The next slide, please. Inside, you see 2 elements that strike him in a very weird way. One was this seal that was examined to be from the time of Ramses II. Ramses II is the person we know, according to biblical time, is Pharaoh from the story of the Exodus. That's very weird. Why do the house in Mount Ebal is going to have this? And he also finds a lot of bones. Very interesting. He examined it, and it all comes from kosher animals. And when he dates the time of both artifacts, the science tells him it's somewhere in between Moses and Joshua's time. And he still doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand why until a student of his comes and say, Adam, I think it's an altar. This is the altar that everybody spoke about, but it doesn't make sense. It should be in the other side. He begins to understand and realize only then that this is the altar from the time of Joshua. All the archaeological expert in the world goes against him. It doesn't make sense. Should be on the other side. He fights for it, really strong, until he gets recognition. Till this day, there is a question mark around it, but the question mark is quite clear. Because if indeed the agricultural, the archaeological digging are going to prove this is an actual altar from the time of Joshua, you know what it means? It means that we have the strongest evidence for the story of the Bible. An altar with kosher animals, with artifacts from the Exodus, that's a bingo. Who can question the Bible anymore? Junger says, because all those science, the PhDs in the university, they look at the story and they say it's a nice story. There's no proof. And when the rabbi says there's a proof, they look at them and say, yes, but you're not from the science. What happens when the science and nature proves the strongest thing, the Exodus, entering the land, and Joshua? Next slide, please. This is, they completed on a computer what is the system, how it looked like. Looks exactly like the altar we know in Jerusalem. That makes sense. And then that's what happened. Please move to the next slide. Our Palestinian friend, some 4 months ago, February, with less, there's a very minor article in the newspaper. Palestinians went to this place, took from the stones of the altar of Joshua, broke it to small pieces, and paved the road to their village. From the ancient stones from the time of Joshua. Did you read it on the news? Was it big headlines? Minor. From Israel, your pastor might show it to you. If you have subscribed to newsletters, you might get it. Was it a big story in the world? Think somebody ruined the pyramids. Think what happened if you went to Peru and moved one stones out of their structures. Taking an ancient altar and ruining it. You see, that's the above photo, and down is how it looks when it's ruined. The next slide, please. So you can see the whole structure. And in your office, I saw, is it in your office that we know that in that time there's like the foot shape. That's what we were looking for, the footprint. So you see the footprint around it, the altar above, damaged place, and that's the paved area. You see where it's like yellow, and not yellow, orange? That's the paved area. Why would we bring bricks from far? Here, there's an altar here. Let's take it, grovel it, use it. Next, please. Can we fight it back? What happened here? I felt devastated. When it happened, I knew in my head that's the first thing I'm going to say when I'm going to get to a church in the US. It looks minor, but this is the hardest thing that could happen to the Jewish people and to our brothers, the Christians. And I'll tell you why. We spoke about it before. We know the reality. But when they are erasing artifacts from history, when they are moving and shifting reality around, our kids and our grandkids, everything is going to be a big question mark. Nothing is reality anymore. If you can take the strongest proof, an ancient altar from the time of Joshua, the beginning of Israel, and you can erase it from history, and you can literally ruin it and pave a road from it, people are going to question the very essence of our existence and our right to stay in Israel. And that's exactly what we're talking about, right? What is the idea behind ruining it? No Israeli went to pray there before. It's an area which is under Palestinian control, very hard to get there. Very quietly. Nobody's going to see. And we just erased a part of the history of Israel. And a couple of days later, when you're going to find out, it's going to be too late. What do we do with that? For a year and a half, I felt that was missing for me, and I'm sure for you as well, is to have this constant contact with the situation in Israel. A reality check of what really happens. If we're not going to flag out the situation and explain to the people and spread the word of what happened in the biblical heartland, soon enough it's all going to be erased. That's what they're doing. We need you guys. We need you there. We need you to read, to be educated, to tell others of what happens there. Connection. Number 2. I thought that the second thing I'm going to share with my friends, and you see, I have nothing written here, no notes. It's all from my heart. Is the situation with COVID. Not the spiritual lesson. I'm not that kind of person. I want to say something very simple. A simple insight that I think can connect to the first topic very well. From all the things that people might learn during COVID is how one person in the Far East can influence all of us. Every single corner of the world was influenced by a couple of people, chain reaction that spread around like fire. The reason I am wearing a mask today is simple. Because next week, when I want to go back to my family, if I'm going to check positive, I need to stay here for 2 more weeks. If this disease is dangerous or not is a question mark, but it's going to be very dangerous for me, from my wife, if I'm going to stay here for another extra 2 weeks. One person, 2 people, all the way there influenced all of us. Every person. What if we're going to take this negative concept and shift it to the positive? What if this message today, the Word of God, what Pastor Nick teaches here day in, day out, is going to be the beacon of light and fire that's going to influence everybody out there? The connections. It's a realization I had during COVID. Why do we only think of the negative side of what bad can come from others? Think of how good could come from others. If a person could do this, surely he can do good and amazing things to change. The connection. If it's the knowledge we were talking about, if it's spreading the love and good, if it's showing others what you have and what you believe in, we can share and spread the truth, the reality, the good, the kindness, all the positive words you want to use, and make something good out of it. It was learned during it. Somebody laughed before that if you cannot be in the men assembly this week, you can zoom in. Zoom, right? A concept. You can literally be in every corner of the world, although I hate Zoom, let's say, and spread your message and your words. We know the word today is viral, not negative, positive. Share good, share knowledge, share truth, share the Word of God. And now we have a question here. When would Israel reopen? Before, I'm going to leave questions in the end, but I need to address that really fast. What's going to happen in Israel? There's a bigger question that some people think. Some people don't want to offend, so they don't ask it. And some people ask me very directly, what's your story with the vaccine? Every person in Israel, almost, takes it. No question asked. The first country in the world to take it. Is that weird? We heard a lot of theories around it. What happened? We know Prime Minister Netanyahu, according to the CEO of Pfizer, obsessed, called him 30 times to reassure they're going to have the vaccine first. Well, I want to give you an insight to the philosophy and psychology of the average Israeli, okay? That's my perspective, at least. Be with me for a second. Think as an Israeli. Erase your thoughts, right? Forget about everything you know. Be in the set of mind of an Israeli. An Israeli, the average Israeli, is a person that from the day he was born, his history, his reality is always forced from emergency and bad situations from the outside. Unfortunately, I'm not talking about people in Judea and Samaria. Of course they are. Somebody from Tel Aviv. It was the Gulf War. You had to walk the streets of Israel with like gas masks. I was fifth grade, was in the 90s. My mother covered it with nice like yellow paper. You're going with a gas mask to school, but it's in a yellow paper. Makes sense. Then when you're 18, all of us, army. Last time I've been here, I tell this story for every place I go for the first time. I told you that when you think it's over, after 3 years, it's not over. And you have reserve. Every year you need to go for 1 month to the army. And then you have every couple of years you have small war in Gaza, some terror here, terror there. You understand that in the perspective of an Israeli, we are literally almost all the time under emergency. Listen to this. When you're in the set of emergency mode, war mode, security problems, when there's a war, there's a war. We salute the commander and we follow the rules because we want to fight and win that war. And that's the Israeli perspective. We are oriented, we are set to fight something, and that's what happened. You told us lockdowns, we took it. We told our kids, wartime, shh, no question asked. That's what needs to be done, that's what's going to happen. And we followed it all the way through. From the lockdowns till the lines to get the vaccine, there's a war, and we're going to go step by step to win it. Now, you can like it or not, but that's the reality. In Israel today, the only country in the world, which wasn't like from a full lockdown from the beginning, who won it. Sunday, yesterday, was the first day that according to the law, you're outside not wearing these masks. You're not supposed to wear masks outside according to the law since yesterday. In a country that we have 7,000, 15,000 sick cases a day, small numbers, but you remember we're a small country. This week we had 150, 160 a day. War, fight, win, continue. Now people say to me, but vaccine, how you push people? Nobody pushes anybody. But the sense of emergency and the sense that something serious is happening shifted the mind of the people to attack back. And we're fighting and we're winning. So what is going to happen with tourism? What's going to happen? Nobody is going to force nobody to take the vaccine to enter Israel. What's going to happen is very simple. Happens already. Check. Check before you board the flight. Check when you enter. Check 72 hours later. Bye. We need to protect Israel. We want you to come back to visit. Only today, in the news, in Tel Aviv, news center for quick checkups. Needs to be done. There's going to be a system. People are going to enter Israel. Soon, if you ask me, June, July is going to be the day where it's going to be open. So that's a bit of comfort, saying that we don't want to vaccinate anybody. But please do understand the reality in the mind of an average Israeli. That's an insight. It's important to share. And those two elements, what happened in Mount Ebal and what happened in the vaccine, is going to shift it into a very nasty story. And this is modern day politics in Israel. I hate this topic. Frustrating. That's the word. The only reason why it doesn't work is because this system is not normal. Quick intro to Israeli politics, 60 seconds. Everybody in Israel votes one card. You put it in a box. In this card, you vote for a party. A party that gets 4 seats out of 120 in the parliament. And you see those nice chairs, so we can imagine it very well. I assume there's something not far from that number. When you have 4 seats in the parliament, you're entering the parliament. To get a coalition and to choose a prime minister and to pass rules, you need to have a majority, which is 61. 60 sometimes. There's one person in Israel everybody knows in the world, our prime minister, beloved prime minister. Did amazing for Israel. Did so much good. You want me to mention a few? When, with your last president, the Iran deal, came here to fight, came to the two houses in front of his face and said, "You are hurting Israel." When he was pressured to give back all the land for peace, he didn't give anything. He brought the Abraham Accords right now. He brought the vaccine. The economy is pretty well. Things are working well. But unfortunately, and I'm sorry to say, the people of Israel, a lot of them are sick and tired from this person. Now, it might be weird to say that because it sounds like he's pretty successful, but sometimes things that we cannot explain. Even a person with a record of success, there's going to be coming a point when people are going to say, it's enough. Why? Because he's very powerful and he's not good in progressing young people in the party. Nobody likes his family. His wife, apparently, she's awful. There's some corruption stories and legal things. Here and there, I don't know exactly, but in reality, a lot of the parties said before the fourth election, because nobody managed to do 60, they went to 4 elections. But just before this 4 election, people said, I'm not going to sit with Netanyahu. I'm not going to be in his government. I'm not going to sit with him. Now, we did the vote. For the first time, nobody can make a government. And that's awful. You want us to vote 5 times in 2 years? That's insane. You understand all the damage that happens from this. There's no budget, no programs. Things can develop. So many issues to being dealt with. We need 4 years of government, and now in 2 years, 5 elections. Since of yesterday, a new suggestion come in mind. I'll just throw it to the air. Probably not going to happen. Re-elect only for the prime minister. The parties are going to stay just like the 4th election. But there's going to be another vote. Who is going to be the prime minister? Direct. So we'll see who really is going to be the prime minister. Awful situation. Not good news for anybody. If you ask me, they're going to go for 5th election again. Less people are going to vote. Nothing is going to change. It's going to be devastating. Friends, I want to open up for questions. It's been such a while, and I want to hear you guys. I want to share things on a personal level, but I want to make it like a conversation. No more speech, a talk. Anybody, please.
So, personally, how do you feel about all those injections and masks and everything that's going on?
Personally, I hated them. I hate the masks. I don't like it. But if that's the way that people can keep themselves safe, I think it's something that was supposed to happen. And we know that in Israel, the mandatory masks and way of keeping it safe with social distancing worked. Worked for a bit. Didn't work enough.
Do you think that the COVID thing was politicized at all?
I know there's that a lot of talk like that in the US. I don't think in Israel it's the case. We feel in Israel that we saw the numbers. We saw the people. We saw how people, every person knows personally somebody either died, was healed, went to an hospital, and I don't think it was overpressure in Israel. I'm not talking about in the US. I don't know what happened here. In Israel, there wasn't overpressure, but there was, as I said before, a sense of emergency. We need to fight it. We need to work together. We're going to win. Simple. Very cold. No drama. Something happened. Result. What you do. How you continue. And I feel, at least in Israel, that was the case. I didn't hear many conversation about politics and stuff. I felt that it was very natural. And the truth was that the only reason in Israel we had some issues with politics was when some people in the society, some society members, groups, completely ignored any social distancing rules, and that really hurt them. I'll be specific. There was two societies like this, two groups. You know who? Hasidic group and the Arab Israelis. And their numbers were huge, to the sense that the mayor of one of the biggest Haredi communities, Hasidic communities, called the prime minister and said, if you're not going to come here and take over, we're going to be done. There wasn't one family, and you understand it's a family, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids, live in a 2-bedroom apartment. How can you not get it? It was really rough. And the Arab community, which it's funny, I think, there was one thing they wouldn't give up on. You know what it was? What do you think is the one thing they don't give up on? What? An event they wouldn't give up. Ramadan is starting only now, a week ago. What? No. Let's try more. I would say maybe prayer, right? Prayer is important. Israelis continue to pray. No. Weddings. Weddings. If you have a wedding, every single person of the family needs to come. Hundreds of people. Israel is in lockdown. Everybody is sick. There's a wedding. Everybody comes. They're sick as well. A big party. Everybody gets sick. Awful. And they're not young. That's the two societies that it happened. Yeah. More. Yes, sir.
For the average American that wants to potentially maybe live in Israel.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that you have to come with a viable type of contribution, like a business, where you're going to contribute to the society, or get married to somebody that's there. If you cannot prove that you have, ties to being Jewish, okay, is that pretty much the basis of how it is now?
Israel is always welcomed according to the law. Every person who has any ancestral connection to Judaism. I'm talking if your grandfather is a Jew, good enough. A general person, like I want to move to the US. Can I do that? I can't. Oh, cross the border at night. Okay, go around the fence. That's an option. That's an option. Surely you cannot enter the land, the place, without any legal rights. And there are some rights, some reasoning, and there's a lot of things. I know people who come for a very long while for university or just high studying. If you prove that you come to study, you get permission. If you go for a business, you get permission. It needs to be followed with papers explaining the situation. 3-month visa. Sometimes you can get extension for 6. Sometimes you can get extension for 9. And sometimes the only thing it takes you is like you take a flight to Cyprus and you come back. So every 3 months, you go to Cyprus, you go to Jordan, you come back, you stamp your passport, and you're good to go.
So how does the average Jewish person that has been there all their life look at people that just have this passion to come? Do they resent us, or what do they think?
We talked about it today. I think the opposite. I think, first of all, you've been to Israel, so that's where the problem starts. People are friendly, are welcoming, are loving. You go on a shop, you go somewhere, people are gonna come to you, hey, manishma. Like people, they're friendly, they're warm. So I don't. There's nobody against anybody, and I'll be more precise. Listen to this. A week ago, there was a official census in the state of Israel. Israel has somewhere about 9 million people. Today, 75% are Jews. That means that 25% are non-Jews, and that's Muslims and Christians as well. So you see the numbers are getting high there, and they're welcome, they're coming, they're contributing, and they have their own thing. No problem. Yes.
Oh. So, is Mount Ebal protected now?
Say it again.
Is Mount Ebal protected now?
So the army went. The army went to visit just after that, of course. What was ruined, right? And now we hope sometimes in life it happens. Just like, I think the lesson learned. When you see someone attacking a place, it makes you feel that's an important cause, right? I think Israelis, the army, the government, never took attention so much on this spot. When they see the Palestinians attacking it, they're smarter. They know what to attack. We're going to keep it now. I hope that the next visit in Israel, there's going to be a tourist, nice, welcoming place to visit there. That's a thing to do, for sure. I've been there only once during my service in the army. And I'm talking about like 20 years ago. Only once? Yeah, shame. Yes, sir.
Welcome back to Florida and to
Thank
America.
you, sir. Thank you.
Are you Jewish or Christian?
I am Jewish. I'm an Orthodox Jew, born and raised in Israel, to Jewish parents, Jewish grandparents, Jewish grand-grandparents. I'm all the way Jewish.
Welcome to Christ.
Yes, more.
I have a couple of questions, but
Go for it.
first of all, is Israel missing us?
That's 100%.
Because they just come by the droves. These Christians from America and all over the world.
Are you kidding me? You know how much?
They got to just be having withdrawals.
Everybody talks about it. Everybody talks about how much was changed.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Especially in Judea and Samaria.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Judea and Samaria because tourists who come to Israel do not come to Judea and Samaria.
Right.
You guys come.
Yes.
And that is a huge, huge loss.
Yes.
Numbers, places, we need you back. The numbers are huge, and I'll be more precise with that. We already, CFOAC already approached high-level ranked people saying, listen, we know you're solving different problems in the process of opening the country. Do not forget our brothers who are waiting to come here.
Yes.
You know how many phone calls and emails I get? What's happening? Open it.
Yes.
Like I have the key for the state of Israel. No worries.
Yeah.
I'm opening it. But I can.
So my second question is, considering how much tourism is financially,
Helping.
It's their greatest income, isn't it, in Israel?
Not the greatest,
Okay.
but big.
But so how could you guys come through all this? A year of lockdown, over a year of lockdown, and financially no tourism, and how can you survive that?
Very interesting question. one of my biggest interests, other than CFOAC, is something that I never ever spoke about in a church, but I'll share with you. Israel is a startup nation. Okay? The amount of startups that are being marketed here in the NASDAQ, the highest number are US companies. The second are Chinese companies. The third, Israelis. Israelis, the small nothing in the world. In the last 6 months, Israel or Israeli companies sold, I want to say, 7 unicorns. Unicorns is a term for a company that is worth more than $1 billion. One company, 1 billion. There's not many of those. In the last 6 months, 7 companies from Israel. When somebody like that happened, boom, a lot of tax goes to Israel. That is a huge benefit that happens in Israel. That's number one. Number two, Israel has supported the people in need during COVID. And the most important thing you should know is if you would be fired from your work, I'm talking from March of 20, you got paid for not working 70% of your income all the way until June of 21. So if people lost their job, they were secured by the government of receiving 70% of their income. Brackets, it's a horrible solution. Why? How many people would quit their job to get 70% for not working, the 30% to work, to wake up in the morning, to drive to work? Not sure. They made something make sense of it that only from a minimum salaries it would be working like that. People with high income didn't get 70%, not to give them the benefit of getting fired and like not working. So Israel has supported businesses and people. We know that America and Israel is completely not the same. The mister in the back asked about coming to Israel. You know, when you come to Israel, one of the benefits, you get medical care for the rest of your life. You don't need to pay for it by the government. You go to school for free. You go to university almost for free. We are a social country by definition. And the amount of things that the average person in Israel gets from his government is huge. This is not the case, friends. This is a wrong, like it's not the case in America. So, completely different story. We know. Different story, different situation, and deficit. Always there. Gonna be deeper. Our kids are gonna pay for it. We're gonna pay for it. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You spoke of opening up the country to come in from international, but what about the Arab countries around you? Are they as successful in treating the COVID? So can you open any borders with Jordan? And
first of all, the borders with Jordan and Egypt are the only one that we have open, and they're very limited. Jordan doesn't really like Israelis. You go there, you need to be checked not to have any Jewish artifacts on you. It's a big story. Nobody goes to visit Jordan just for fun. It's not something that happens. Egypt is different because Egypt, we know a lot of people go to the Sinai Peninsula. Beautiful, gorgeous beaches. You go there, you're in vacation. Young people love. You drop there for a week. Cost like, I'm throwing like $100. You live like a king for 2 weeks. Very cheap, very, very cheap place. It was closed for a year. 3 weeks ago, it was open. Lines from the border all the way to Eilat. kilometers of people with their snack and coffee ready. Let's go to Sinai. And the funny was, it was just before Passover. And the joke was, where are you going to celebrate Passover? In Egypt. Yes.
Then what about all the interior crossing points, etc.?
What do you mean?
Intra-Israel,
Where?
between the Palestinian borders,
there's no, the borders to the Palestinian authorities are where we live.
Right.
I live near Kalkilia.
Right.
By the way, you want to hear a story? I forgot to say that. 3 months ago, interesting. I need to put a photo in the slide here. 3 months ago, I'm driving back home from Tel Aviv, 11 o'clock at night. I go to Tufim. The way it goes is like I'm crossing a checkpoint, and there's like, how do you say when there's a circle in the road? Like roundabout? Roundabout. You hear the way saying that I never knew. Roundabout. So when I enter the roundabout, I see a car, a Palestinian car in the side of the road, just waiting. It's 11:05, and then I need to take a left, and this is the entrance to Kalkilia. If I drive fast, like straight, it's Kalkilia. I need to take a right to get to Tufim, my home. I begin to ride there, and I drive. Then I see somebody behind me opening the lights. He was driving without lights, 11 o'clock at night. And I see in the back mirror, he's driving really, really fast. Like, not normal. The guy hates my car. He wanted to hit my car. On the left back side, it happens. What do? What do? You stop the car and check. No. If that's what's going to happen, he has two people inside. He's going to stop in front of you. One person is going to jump, throw you out of the car, take your car to Kalkilia, done. My instinct, it's not something you think about. My instinct said, Shmuel, continue. So he bumped into me. Okay, I have a faster car than you have. Gas, drove inside Tufim. We got there, police came, army came. Said, yeah, only this week it happened to 3 people. 2 people foolishly stopped. The car was taken to Kalkilia. You were smart. That's what you should do. You should drive fast. Happened. Why did I say that? Because you asked about borders. In Judea and Samaria, the Palestinian cities are open. They can drive anywhere. I am not allowed to drive there. They're allowed to drive anywhere. Place to place, village to village, in our roads, side outside. Hey, that was a story. I forgot about it. Yes. Yes. If you have the mic, don't ask permission. You have the mic.
Okay. Yeah, like you, I was born Jewish, circumcised, bar mitzvah, the whole thing.
Yeah.
For a long time, I've had desire to make Aliyah to Israel. Thing is, I'm a Jew who has Christ as my Messiah. I understand that's a big problem.
How is it a big problem?
Well, that
trust me, nobody is going to ask you in the immigration, please declare you believe in God. No.
Yeah,
Nobody's going to ask you.
I understand, part of the process is interviews and things like that. And
I am not here from the ministry. I'm not from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but I'm pretty sure that if you have a legit story of Judaism and you can prove it and you connect with the story of Israel and you want to get there, I don't see how they're going to stop you.
Okay, I mean, I've heard different that it could be a big obstacle.
So maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. But
if you
what you know about that?
I know differently, but maybe you know something else. I didn't check it. Never occurred to me that this is a situation. What people believes in their heart, it's their own issue. If you ask me, like I don't know. Maybe. Let's talk later. I'll check online. Let's see what Google says. They know the best.
Yeah, I know it's been to the Supreme Court a couple of times.
Really?
I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe.
So
There's always new things you learn. I'll check it out. More. Yes. Yes. In the back.
You actually have a question from our online audience tonight. So this question comes from Elaine. She was asking if the 6-month ceasefire with Gaza will end soon. Do you think that the ceasefire will continue? What is your thoughts?
Ceasefire. It's a funny word, ceasefire. They call it ceasefire. A week ago, they shot missiles. 2 weeks ago, in the day that Bibi won or didn't win the election, missiles. There's no ceasefire. I'm looking to the camera here. I never heard of a ceasefire. They continue to do whatever they want. They continue and they would do more and more and more and more because we're not attacking back. But there's going to be a point when we're not going to retaliate anymore and we're going to attack back. That's what it is. And that's the progress that's going to happen. Unfortunately, we've been there. I'm sure last time I've been here, there was a round either before or after in Gaza. That's an ongoing fight. I think right now, one of the reasons it's been quiet-ish is because of COVID. They have COVID as well. I think only yesterday, like 16 people died in Gaza. It's hard for them to control it. Again, dense areas. There's issues there. So yeah, there's no ceasefire that I know of, and we just need to see how it's going to develop. Thank you.
After the Abraham Accords, what kind of traveling interactions do you expect from these? What, is it 3 countries or 4 countries?
Israelis love to travel. They love it. Immediately when they could, during COVID, they went to Dubai. Hundreds of them, thousands of them. A lot of them came back with COVID. Yeah, fun. It would be fun if it's not sad. So Dubai, people love it. Abu Dhabi, I saw it. There's nothing there. It's a desert. I know. I feel that more than anything, the Abraham Accords, I don't care about tourism. I care about what they represent. It's actually a good question because it symbolized something. The Abraham Accords was so strong, was so wow, because for the first time, it looked, and it should be like that in reality, we are for peace. The Jewish people, as much as you want, we don't hate Arabs. We have nothing against Arabs, Muslims. No. We're good. Until that point, it always looked like we are the obstacle of peace. But when all the countries around us says, you know what? The truth is, you tried everything with the Palestinians. You really tried everything. Nothing worked. You're not an obstacle for peace. The opposite. Here, let's shake hands. We could make peace. And country after country after country. And you ask those people over there, what about the Palestinians? They're your brother. What are they going to say? If I have a brother who insists of doing nonsense, doesn't want to develop himself, doesn't want to do anything good for him, should I be blamed? We want to progress. We want to do business. We want to develop. Immediately, hundreds of contracts were signed between technology, startups, and countries. You're kidding me? Everybody's going to win from this move. But in the geopolitics of the world, it's going to be remembered. Israel is not an obstacle for peace. The opposite. If you're in peace with us, you're only going to gain from it. We're going to develop, we're going to help, we're going to work together. We are seeking peace, we're not against it. So a good question about the Abraham Accords. Yes?
Have you ever heard of Hayovel?
Sure.
What do you think about them?
Oh, I love them.
Okay.
I've been to their compound in Abraham, and I personally know many of them. I love the title, the Joshua and Caleb report. They need to get the Oscar for good names, titles for something. Sounds biblical, Joshua. Of course. They're brilliant. They do amazing work. I love what they do, and I think they're bringing a lot of blessing to the country. And if I can comment in one thing, I think not many people in Israel know about their existence. I know. It's great. I think they're great and amazing, and I want more people to know about their great work inside of Israel, right? Not in the Christian world. The Christian world knows them, but I think that it's something lacking in communicating to the people in Israel. They're doing a great job, but more people need to know about it. Yes?
What percentage of the Palestinians are Christians?
Very small because it's not easy. There was a story about the families who live in Bethlehem. And you know that, right? There's a couple of families there, and they're Arabs, right? But because they're Christian, the Muslims are not so friendly, not so welcoming. And there was a lot of pressure on them. They still live there, but they suffer. So it's a hard situation. Um, but there are a couple of hundreds, if not thousands, but it's not something big, unfortunately.
I was under the impression it was much more than that. And
In the Arab Israeli communities, like Nazareth, you can get more. You talked about Palestinians. The Palestinians, it's different. They are, I would say, you can learn from the context of the relationship with Israel. They're not so, I would say that, maybe friendly, sensitive to others, patient, tolerant. So that's the way they treat their neighbors, close neighbors. Question about us? Yes.
So I have a family that I've befriended in Nazareth, the Sephori family, and they are been there for generations. They feel like they go all the way back to Zipporah, but they are Christians. But because the Palestinians are moving in, or Muslim, I should say, Muslim Arabs are moving into Nazareth, a lot of the Christians are moving out. And she begged me. She thought, I guess I was some dignitary when I came there, but she begged me to get help from America to help them. And I said, well, so she said, the Jewish government doesn't want to really help them because they got enough of their own problems. And she feels like they're all alone. And who's helping them?
Unfortunately, it's a wider problem. When I get into it, I'll tell you this. The Arab Israeli community, okay, the Muslims, I feel for some reason they have a hard time to adjust to living side by side to somebody. It's like they want it all, right? They go to a place, they bring more of their friends till the point they can like put pressure on the minority to live. It happened in several places and neighborhoods in Israel. In Israel, they get to a neighborhood, they work smart, right? You live there. You have like 5, 6, 7 kids, right? You bring one and one of the cousins and one of this, and so you get a building. You have 6 apartments in the buildings. 4 of them are Arabs already. The life of the 2 remaining one are not going to be so easy. They're going to pressure it outside. So it not only happens with Christians, it happened with Israeli Jews as well. I just showed the pastor before. Jaffa, Yafo, Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv. I always joke when I come to places like Judea and Samaria, it's the biblical heartland mentioned in the Bible. I never saw Tel Aviv in the Bible. Right? Tel Aviv is like the most like secular, modern, right? It's the New York of Israel. Fair. Bordering, it's always called Tel Aviv Yafo. It's one city. You go to the south, you've been there, yeah, right? The watch, the pishpishim, the flea market. People are, that, this is where you go. Yafo. Yafo. Did I say enough? Yafo? In Yafo, you have Arabs who are teasing, hurting, beating Jews, telling them, move away from here. We're going to talk about Nazareth. Tel Aviv. We know. We know. I don't think it's necessarily like a Christian Jew thing. It's like us. We want to be in charge. If you're not like us, go away. I think the time says 9, so we have another movie to see. So maybe 2 more questions. Yes? Sarah.
Sorry, I've got the
Oh,
mic.
she has the mic, so he... Sorry.
Are the Israelis in favor of the Abrahamic Accords, and will they continue? Because there was more countries lined up to sign, right?
The words on the street is there was like 8 more countries, but when President Trump wasn't reelected, I don't think Biden wants to push it so much. That's my thought. I think people are going to wait. People are going to wait to see where it's going to develop. Do they like the Abraham Accords? I said before, we love to travel. And every country, like literally, if there's going to be peace with Yemen, they're going to go there to find out there's no electricity on the streets, but we can travel here, let's go. Israelis, they love this experience. They travel, they want to be everywhere. So we love the concept. I think, as I said, it's proved something for us. But where it's going to go, we don't know. We need to wait for that to see where it goes. Right now, I think the official word is like they're ignoring Israel. You noticed that, right? Bibi Netanyahu was the last person to receive a phone call from the president. Only last week was the first visit of somebody, an official to Israel. Cold shoulder, yeah. At least it's not negative yet. It's only cold shoulder. Yes.
I was curious if you know the work that Nati Ram is doing in Samaria, trying to help with.
Yes, we talked about it. Nati. I know Nati. Lives in Shiloh, next to Shiloh. A business of selling products from Israel. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Technically, I think he's not in that business anymore. But I know about him and about his work and what he did in the past, or I think if he's doing it still.
I know he's helping with them set up
Lev Olam?
Yeah.
Lev Olam. Great.
Not so much Lev Olam, but how he's helping them when it comes to legal battles and stuff when they're setting up homesteads in Samaria.
As a lawyer.
Yes.
Okay.
And the people are just tearing their settlements down.
I don't know, but I heard the name. I know him. He's doing a good job, especially if he gets to new people. People know him. People connect with him. In the map outside, you're marked where Nati is from. Every person who does and brings positivity and shares, as we said, viral, good, is a friend, is positive, is a blessing. We need to give you one last question. Yes.
With all the surrounding Arab nations for, thousands of years, I know that there's different sects and divisions in religion and culture. But what we think sometimes as Americans is why can't the Arabs and the Saudi Arabians and all these people take care of their own brothers even though they're in your country? I mean, they've got massive wealth. They've got the ability.
You're talking about like tribal fights inside those
just
countries?
In general, if you're an Arab and you are identifying with
Sunni,
different, whether it's Sunni or Shiite, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in general. We wonder sometimes as Americans, why can't you guys, take some of the burden? And why you make Israel look bad with whatever they give them isn't shown to be appreciated. It's like, you're not the only source. Saudi Arabia is rich beyond measure. You know?
I think that what is lacking in the understanding here is the fact that, and I said before, I think bottom line, the requests and the needs of the Palestinians are not legit. Put it this way: the Palestinians are the only people that 70 years after the 72 last week, after the establishment of Israel, still call themselves refugees. UNRWA, the UN Organization for Refugees, Palestinians, gave a title to a refugee if your grandfather was a refugee. There's no other country in the world that treat their refugee this way. This is a sense of, I would say, market of making them the victim. They are living out of it. This is what sponsors them. This is how billions of dollars comes from all over the world, including the US, Europe, and many other countries, to support their needs. They love the position of victims. So, if that's the case, it makes sense that people, like you need to be one to know one, right? People who know exactly the reality, their brothers don't sponsor them, don't help them as much. You could make better life for yourself, for your future. If you would take the billions of dollars that were given to you to build the Gaza after the evacuation of good people from Gaza Strip, from Gush Katif. You took billions of dollars to build a new Gaza underground. If you would invest it in your people, if you wouldn't be corrupted, if you would care for your people, it could be really a different place. I understand that. Maybe you understand that. They don't understand that. Or I put it this way, they understand it very well. They understand who they're working with. No more victims. And when you think those people who are smart, they make money, and you see somebody and you're really like giving him a hand and he spits in your face time after time, I get you. It's fine. Bye. That's the story. The Judea and Samaria story, which we touched today on different levels, is the story that we represent in CFOIC. We are trying to go and develop this connection with people, saying one simple thing. What the Palestinians are trying to erase, our work, your work, is to make it alive, to commit to this, to bless this place. We are working, as you saw in the beginning in the movie, with different parts of the communities, people in need, people to develop. There is not a community like that in the world that chooses where to live out of ideology, not because it's safe, leisure, or close to your workplace. It's the opposite. It's not safe. There's no leisure life, and it's not close to anything. But they decide to live in Judea and Samaria because this is the biblical heartland, and this is where the prophecy of people going to that spot. And we are working with God on that. And we're calling to our friends who want to be part of this. We're working with so many communities in Judea and Samaria. I visited so many of them in the last year. And you see amazing communities, great people. Concluding, we want to see you there ASAP. Now, as promised, in the last year, social distancing. Heard it in so many levels, but the one level that hurt the most was, as you said, groups weren't able to come and visit. So we did our best and tried to bring you a bit of Judea and Samaria. As I said, never seen before clip, of beautiful sights was taken in the last 3 months from a friend of my community, actually from Tufim. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that's the only or the last time you're going to see Israel from a camera, from a screen, and the next time is going to be in Israel. As we say, as we say in the end of the Saturday night, Leshana Abba B'Yerushalayim Abnoya. Next year in Jerusalem, I hope it's not going to be next year, the next couple of months. Thank you very much for having me.
The land you are about to cross into and possess, a land of hills and valleys, soaks up its water from the rains of heaven. It is a land which the Lord your God looks after, on which the Lord your God always keeps his eye, from year's beginning to year's end.
This is the land of Israel. This is the biblical heartland. This is Judea and Samaria. God first revealed his plan for Israel to Abraham at the Oak of Moreh. I will give this land to your children. Hundreds of years later, God would bring the nation of Israel back to this very same area, to Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, and enter into a covenant with the people of Israel that would bind them to the God of Israel and to the land of Israel forever. Hebron became the home of the patriarchs and matriarchs and their burial place, and later, King David's first capital. Shiloh was the first capital of Israel, where the tabernacle stood for close to 400 years. King David tended his sheep in the hills near Bethlehem and later fled from Saul in the mountains south of Hebron. God has fulfilled his promise and has gathered his people back into the land, and they have returned to the biblical heartland, building communities where their ancient forefathers walked and lived, where the kings of Israel ruled, and where the prophets spoke the words that have reached fulfillment today. 500,000 Jews live in Judea and Samaria, in small communities, larger towns, and cities. They have built homes, schools, businesses, and shopping centers. They have built communities based on solidarity, compassion, and acceptance. Their foundation is one of faith in the truth of God's word and in the beauty of a society that follows God's direction. The special needs child and adult are welcomed into the community. Those who are weak and need assistance are helped by those who are stronger and have more. And although the area is fraught with danger, the people of Judea and Samaria do whatever they can to protect their families, to ensure that their children can play freely, that mothers can walk their babies and meet their friends, that the elderly can gather and enjoy each other's company without fear. The original founders of the communities in Judea and Samaria have been blessed to witness 3 and 4 generations living in the communities that they built on the barren hilltops. The people of Judea and Samaria are special people indeed, loving, caring, imbued with faith, guided by biblical values, confident in the promises that God made to his people. Visit with us in our communities. Get to know us in our homes. Connect to us. Join CFYC Heartland and connect to the people of Judea and Samaria.